In 1937, a biological weapons testing center was established in the Manchuria region of China. During its activity, it witnessed the worst events in the history of mankind. These experiments were so terrible that the prisoners considered death as one of their wishes. Unit 731 in 1937 in the city of Harbin, in the Heilongjiang province of China, which was under the rule of the Japanese Empire at the time. It was established by the government of this country as a public health promotion agency. Research was supposed to be done in this unit that would help Japanese soldiers in the war, such as learning about the methods by which the human body endures hunger and thirst and fights diseases. The initial experiments were conducted on volunteers who had given consent, but with the intensification of the war, the officials of the unit changed their method. Although the 1925 Geneva Convention prohibited the use of biological or chemical weapons in war, the Japanese wanted to prepare themselves for this type of war. Since these types of experiments were naturally experiments that people did not volunteer for, the Japanese decided to conduct experiments on prisoners of war. The commander of this unit was a Japanese doctor and microbiologist named General Shiraishi. In 1932, after a 2-year trip to the West, had proposed the formation of a microbial and chemical research unit and said that the Western powers would use such units in their army. Shiraishi was a biologist who served the Imperial Japanese Army from 1921 to 1945. First, he set up a research unit called the Togo Unit. In the following years, he expanded his activity and set up several other centers. Later, all these units were merged together, and they were named the Department of Epidemic Disease Prevention and Water Purification. In 1931, the Imperial Japanese Army occupied a large part of China as part of its expansionist program, and the Manchuria region under Japanese control was a suitable place for conducting human experiments. The reason why the research conducted by Section 731 remained infamous is because of the type of experiments and patients that were tested. Terrible experiments that had no escape route for the prisoners except death. The victims of Unit 731 were primarily Chinese from the Manchurian region, but among them there were Mongolians, Koreans, and even Russian prisoners. They were chosen to be representative of all social classes. There were even infants, elderly people, and pregnant women among these people. The researchers of this unit published some of their results and research among academic discoveries. They wrote their articles as if they were done on mammals such as monkeys. In this place, diseases such as anthrax, cowpox, and many cultivation was done, and the use of anesthetics and painkillers should be kept to a minimum. This work was a guarantee for the correct recording of reports related to the limits of human tolerance and the effects of injuries and horrible crimes that were inflicted on them. In summary, the two key objectives of Section 731 include developing and understanding the effectiveness of biological and chemical weapons, as well as understanding the various injuries that the Imperial Japanese soldiers can sustain against non-nuclear weapons, and how to best treat the injuries and wounds could be treated. To ensure Japan's victory, a wide range of experiments were conducted. One of the experiments was the effect of extreme cold on the body, and for this purpose, a special freezer was set up to reach a temperature of minus 45 degrees Celsius. Friends, if you have liked the video so far, please like it and let's see the rest of the story together. The organs were exposed to sub-zero temperatures so that doctors could examine the effects of frostbite. Prisoners were hanged in the dead of winter so that the organs would die naturally from frostbite. The guards would speed up this process by throwing water on the victims. When the doctors were monitoring their patients, Different methods were used to treat frostbite. Water boils were poured on frozen organs, and some prisoners were left to warm naturally. Autopsies on living people were common in Section 731, so trainee surgeons were sent from mainland Japan to perform their autopsies on people to practice alive. The organs were removed and transplanted again on the opposite side. Various experiments were conducted on a prisoner. When they reached their goal and the prisoner was no longer useful for them, he was killed and his body was destroyed. Some of the cruel experiments conducted in this center included more non-nuclear weapons. The effective range of the grenades was tested on the prisoners who were tied to the stake. They also tested how much damage a flamethrower could cause up close or at a distance. They forced the prisoners to have sex with each other to spread various diseases. The group of prisoners who refused to do so were shot. After the victims were infected with syphilis, they were dissected alive in various stages of infection to observe the progress of the disease and its effects on the internal and external parts of the body. In addition, they forcibly impregnated the women to understand what effect this disease had on them. One of the main roles of this center was the production of efficient and durable chemical and biological weapons. Japanese researchers conducted experiments on prisoners using various microbes. They made many efforts to infect fleas and lice with cowpox and smallpox, and then the same wheat, clothes, or contaminated sand were delivered to Chinese villages. This research led to the production of bacillus defoliating bombs and bombs containing fleas, which were used to spread town kayaraki in Chinese cities. These bombs were used by Japanese forces. It enabled Siascom to spread dysentery and fleas, carrying ton and other deadly diseases on agricultural products, wells, water reservoirs, and other areas. During these experiments, the researchers wore special protective clothing and watched and examined the victims while they died. After the surrender of the Japanese, the doctors of Department 731 committed their last crimes and released millions of Taon-infected fleas in the countryside of China. It is estimated that 30,000 people died as a result of this criminal act. They executed the remaining 150 prisoners and destroyed the buildings. Most of the records were destroyed, and doctors hid for fear of the consequences of their war crimes. Shivaishi ordered all those who were involved in these crimes to take the secrets of the work related to Section 731 to the grave. But this was not the end of the work of Shirvaishi and the doctors of Section 731. After he tried to fake his death, the Americans realized that he was still alive and ordered the Japanese to hand him over for interrogation. Both the Americans and the Soviets wanted Ishii and his knowledge and expertise. Receiving full immunity as well as cash payments for himself and prominent Section 731 doctors to negotiate an amnesty agreement. Ishii was the result of his 14 years of research and was released as a freedman and war hero. And finally, he was awarded the Golden Kite, the second highest Japanese military award. Most of the commanders of Section 731 also escaped from justice. Shiro Ishii died of throat cancer at the age of 67, and only 12 members of the Imperial Japanese Army were tried for producing biological weapons, and only 6 of these people were they were Section 731. The Soviet Union held trials against war criminals in 1949, but these trials were largely dismissed by Western powers as communist-oriented propaganda. The Soviets were known for their short trials. However, some historians accept that the confessions the doctors were based on the facts, not on the wishes of their communist captors. These experiments were a special dishonor and shame for the Emperor of Japan, who was directly related to the orders to create the biological weapons program. We will probably never know the full extent of the corruption and crimes of Section 731. The only thing we have is the testimony of a few guards who stepped forward and the visitors who witnessed the unspeakable horror of their countrymen, women, and children. Shirvaishi's research was useful for the advancement of science, but here is the question: whether he and his group of unscrupulous doctors should have escaped from justice in exchange for their research. Friends, if you like this video, like the video and subscribe to our channel to see more videos.